My name is Stockton Banfield and I'm with Udall Shumway. I'm in the firm's litigation group and I handle a lot of business and real estate litigation. Today I'd like to speak with you briefly about partition actions. A partition action is an action governed by statute to resolve a dispute between common owners of real property. Now, a common owner is someone who is a tenant in common, a joint tenant, or tenancy by the entirety. Each person has a vested interest in the property, and this interest can be freely divisible. If there is a problem dividing that interest, then a partition action is necessary. Partitions can occur in two ways. There can be a partition in kind and a partition in sale. A partition in kind typically involves engaging an appraisal and someone who does zoning to divide the property equitably between the common owners. As you can imagine, this is not an easy process to do, so most partition actions are done by way of sale. Now, a partition by way of sale is essentially as it sounds. You're going to file a partition action and the parties are going to agree on a list price and sell the property, and then the profits of the property will be divided equally among the owners. So what is the process for filing a partition action? Well, when I do these, the first step I try to do is a voluntary partition action, and what this essentially involves is a letter to all the common owners in which one common owner says, this is what I would like to do with the property, and explains it to all the other common owners. We ask for a return letter in order to determine whether the other owners are on board. If they are, then a voluntary partition can take place. This is essentially listing the property and selling it. Most voluntary partitions take place by way of sale. If the other common owners are not in agreement with what's going on, at that point you typically want to engage counsel and file a partition action. Now, a partition action is just a statutory remedy that the court controls, and it is done by filing a complaint in the court where the county where the property is located. And this is required because the county where the property is located has the jurisdiction for the partition action. And so in the complaint, you simply have to make sure you have a couple of things in place. The first is you have to be sure that all parties with an interest in the property are listed in the complaint. Now, when I say interest in the property, this also includes the lender who may have a security on the property. So you need to include the other common owners as well as the lender. Each party is required on this suit and must be served. In addition, you have to include the address of each party and the interest owned by each party. Things that you don't have to include, but it's good to have, are the anticipated value of the property. So it's good to get an appraisal done before you file a complaint so you understand the value of the property. And so you allege the parties, the value, that there is a dispute with the property, and then finally you give a description of the real property as it's defined on title. And so this is sufficient to file a complaint in the county where the property is located. So once you have that, the court will set a hearing. And at that hearing, you'll produce evidence as to why this partition action is necessary. Once the evidence is put on, the court will likely appoint a receiver. Now, in Arizona, typically receivers are real estate agents or trustees who will provide a value of the property and list it and sell it. Once the receiver is in place, an order will be issued for what the receiver should do and how they should handle it. Once the order is entered, the receiver has the ability to control the property and sell it for the fair market value. This is done without the involvement really of the common owners because the receiver now has control over the property. Once it's sold, the funds are deposited into the court and an order is entered dividing the funds fairly among the common owners. And so this is a short overview of the partition process. It is a process that often occurs when there is an investment property or common owners in a probate situation. And so if you run into a situation like this and you need help or advice with a partition, you can feel free to call me.